What's going on, guys? This is Chandler Smith, and in this video, I'm gonna help you decide whether right now is the right time for you to invest in real estate or if you should hold off. I'm gonna talk about the real estate investing market. I'm gonna talk about your specific market, and if you stick around till the end of the video, I'm gonna give you an update on the 15plex that I currently have under contract. So with all of that being said, let's jump into it. All right, guys, if you're new to the channel, my name's Chandler Smith, and I've been investing in real estate for the last 7 years. I currently own 99 units of rental real estate, and I currently have a 15plex under contract. However, I haven't purchased any real estate since the beginning of the year. And so in this video, I wanna help you understand why I haven't purchased any real estate. I wanna help you understand what I looked into before getting comfortable enough to get this 15plex under contract. And I wanna tell you everything you need to know before deciding to purchase real estate in your specific market. Because right now, the world is pretty crazy, to say the least. 2020 has been absolutely insane. And so I wanna give you a long list of criteria that you need to make sure that you check and check twice before purchasing real estate. I wanna tell you up front that there is nothing in the world that would keep me from purchasing real estate if the deal was right. Now, obviously there's probably something absolutely insane that would keep me from purchasing real estate. And even with COVID, it definitely slowed me down and I let off the gas. However, if the best deal of all deals was presented during COVID, I definitely would have purchased it. And the reason that I bring this up is you need to understand real estate is always a good investment if all of your criteria are met. I think so often people don't buy out of fear, or they do buy out of urgency, or they let their emotions get attached to whether they should purchase or not purchase real estate. And that is not the way that you play this game. The only way that you will win when investing in real estate is if you have a very detailed list of criteria. And if that criteria is met, then you buy. And if that criteria is not met, then you don't buy. Regardless of what fear there is out in the market, I know when I find a good deal, I know when the property meets my criteria, and I know that I can confidently purchase properties. Now, I want you to know that I've worked very hard to stay educated on what's going on in the world, but more importantly, what's going on in our country and in my specific market so that I know and I'm confident in what's coming. Now, no one has a crystal ball. No one knows exactly when it's gonna go up or when it's gonna go down. However, there are a lot of key factors that if you're consistently watching, you can get to the point where you're very comfortable with your specific market. And if you get to the point where you're not comfortable after looking at these criteria, then you've got to hold off. Don't get emotional and buy, but don't get emotional and don't buy. Make sure that you're sticking to your criteria. And if you do that and everything is met, I promise you it's a good time to buy. So I haven't held off on purchasing real estate because I'm acting out of fear. I've held off because I haven't found a deal that was worth purchasing. And now that I have this 15plex under contract, it does look like it's going to work. However, we are not through the entire process. Let's just jump into my criteria. Criteria number one is a 10% cash on cash return. Now, in past videos, I have bounced between a 10% cash on cash return and a 15% cash on cash return. And I want to explain why. First off, things have changed in the market, and when I'm nervous, I stiffen up on my criteria. Also, when I was early on investing, I held to a 20% cash on cash return because I wanted to make sure I left room for error, because lots of things can happen when you don't understand your market, when you haven't owned investments, and when potentially you could end up with more expenses or other issues that you don't know about. And so if you're wanting to get started and you're nervous, just set your criteria higher, but understand it is going to be harder for you to find deals. Now, one of the big mistakes that people make is they look at deal after deal after deal, and then they start to bend on their criteria. I try to stick to a 15% cash on cash return. Now, the only reason I bent down to a 10% cash on cash return is I saw the need for housing increase in my market. to the point where I believed that rents were going to continually go up to where within a year or two, I would be to that 15% cash on cash return. The other reason that I bent on things is I went from having a 25% down, 30-year fixed loan on properties down to 20-year loans as I moved into commercial lending and a 30% down. So now I've got a lot more equity in the property, a lot more money tied up, and a shorter loan term, and that really eats into your cash flow. So just going from a loan where you've got 30% down on a 20-year loan and then flipping over to a 30-year fixed loan with 25% down, that can actually increase your cash flow as much as 5%. And so for me, I came to the determination that with a larger down and with a shorter loan term, I was okay with a smaller percentage return on my cash flow, when in all reality, that was actually still a very large amount of cash flow, so that if it did get eaten into because I needed to lower rents or do something else, I was still in a very comfortable place. Now, I'm not telling you you need to hold to a 15% or a 20% or a 10%. That's something that you personally need to sit down and think about. However, if I was you, I would not purchase a property for less than a 10% cash on cash return in any market unless you are 100% confident that market is going to go up in value by 20% every year for the next 5 years. And nobody knows that, all right? That's something that if you know, call me. I'd love to come and invest in your market. So hold to that criteria as a minimum. Now, if you bend below that, you can still get a decent return on properties and it might go fine for you. However, for me, I want to make sure that I'm extremely protected and I have a very fat cash flow. So criteria number one, do not drop below a 10% cash on cash return. My next criteria is find a market that is consistently growing and has a need for housing. I see so many people in these ultra ghetto markets, and they're markets where you can pick up properties for super cheap. They promise these huge cash on cash returns, but then you look and there is huge vacancy in that area. You look and you see that people are leaving faster than they are coming in. These are things you need to know, and you want to invest in an area that you know is going to continue to grow and that you know vacancy rates are absurdly low. You don't want to be in a place where there's just not a need for housing, and so the only way you can get tenants is by lowering rents, if you can get tenants at all. So be very confident in your market and be in a market that is larger. You don't want to be in this market that has 8,000 people. You want to be in a market that has 80 to 100,000 plus, so that you know you're going to be able to get consistent tenants, and there's always going to be a need in housing, and there's lots of building going on and a shortage in housing across the board. You want to make sure you're in a place where you're not going to have issues with vacancy, and you know your properties are going to go up in value, because as there's a shortage, as it expands, as it grows, those are the markets that are going to get huge appreciation in their home values, because it's just simple supply and demand. If there's not enough housing, then the price is going to go up on rents and on the value of properties. And so make sure you're in a market like that. My next criteria is make sure you're in a market with diverse employment. Now, what I mean by this is you want to be in a place that has tons of big businesses employing people, so that if something shifts in the market and one of those big businesses goes out of business, you're still going to have a need for housing. You're still going to have a lot of people there. That's why if you're in a college town or in a mining town or in a town that relies solely on one business, that is very risky, because if that business dries up, you're screwed. And I have so many people that come to me and say, Chandler, I'm in this town. I grew up in it. It's got 10,000 people. Everything survives on a mill. I can get a huge cash on cash return. And what I will tell them is, look, if you trust the market, then sure, send it, go for it, see if it works out. However, you're taking a huge risk when you're depending on one business, because if something happens with that one business, you're going to go bottoms up. And with me and my personal portfolio, I'll tell you right now, I feel stressed lately that all of my investment properties are within an hour of each other. Now, I'm extremely confident in my market and I feel like it's only going to go up from here. But even still, even though I have diverse employment, even though I'm in a market that's expanding and growing and has a need for housing, everything's in one place. And I'm not a big believer in over diversifying into a ton of different investments. But with real estate, I do think I'll start to look outside of my market because I like the idea of owning multiple properties in different markets. So if something happens to my market, it's not going to be the complete and total end of the world. It'll still suck. And right now, it'll suck really bad. And honestly, I've probably over leveraged myself for one specific market. Now, I think it's a good gamble to take and I'm comfortable where I'm at. But if I could do one thing to my portfolio, it would be to spread it out. And the reason for that is even though I meet these criteria, I feel like it's a little stressful to be in one area with everything. It's like putting all of your eggs in one basket. And that is why it's so important to not only try and spread out those eggs, but make sure wherever you put those eggs that they're in a bigger market that has lots of different businesses that are employing your people so that you know they're going to be able to pay their bills and continue to rent for you. Because again, if you live in a town that is depending on one thing and that thing dries up, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. My next criteria is make sure that you're investing in B neighborhoods, maybe C plus neighborhoods. And if you don't know how to determine these, essentially it just goes A, B, C, D. D are super, super ghetto properties for super cheap. A are brand new, very nice units. And then everything else falls in between. The reason I say B is it's something that I personally would feel comfortable if my kids lived in or if I lived in. Now, I don't like that phrase because right now with my financial situation, no, I wouldn't live in one of my properties because I can afford to have a house of my own. However, it is something that I'm proud of, and I think you should own properties that you're proud of. Now, with that being said, I don't bash on quote unquote slumlords because everyone needs housing and it's a price point thing. A lot of time, slumlords are renting to people because those people can only afford at that price point. And there's a difference between a good slumlord and a bad slumlord. And what I mean by that is, well, that's not completely true. If you call them a slumlord, they're a slumlord. But what I mean is you need a lower price point for certain people. And those landlords need to be good humans and make sure that they still take care of those properties so it's a decent place to live. However, I personally like to keep a portfolio that I know is in a C plus B neighborhood so that my people are going to be a lot easier to deal with. There's a lot less stress. You can hold a higher criteria on credit, on income. And so for me, that is one of my criterias. I want to be in a place where the school districts are good. I want to be in a place where I've got good properties that are going to have low maintenance because I can find good tenants in an area that's expanding, where rents are going up, where values are going up so that I can get appreciation and get all of the benefits of those things while also getting the cash flow that I need on those properties. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are saying, Chandler, that's all fine and dandy. We love your criteria, but we want to know if 2020 is a good time to invest because the economy is crazy. The market is crazy. Is there going to be a next big dip like there was in 2008? Should we buy now or should we wait? Because there's going to be a big dip. And what I will tell you is there's always going to be corrections in real estate. However, to say that the entire United States is going to have the same percentage correction in every city, every town, that's just unrealistic. Every city is different. Every town is different. Every different area is going to respond differently to what's going on with the election, to what's going on with COVID, to what's going on with everything else. And we can see that already in some areas, people have been able to pay rent better than in other areas as we've gone through COVID. And so my answer to you again is go back to your specific market. Make sure you're in a place that you feel like COVID isn't going to affect it to the point where people aren't going to pay their rents. And if they can't pay their rents, make sure you're in a place that people aren't going to leave or that the government isn't going to be able to step in and help them. We have something here in Idaho called Idaho Housing. So for those that haven't been able to keep jobs, they've still had a way to pay rent. Now there's a good chance that disappears. However, there is such a shortage on housing right now in Idaho that I'm extremely confident in our future, and that's why I continue to invest here. And I think there are lots of cities like that. Now, in my personal opinion, there are bigger cities that make me very nervous because there's been lots of crazy stuff that has gone on, and a lot of people have decided they don't want to be around a ton of people. They don't want to be in a big city. And so if you're in a city like that, where you can see that people are leaving, you can see that the economy is hurting, you can see that they're going to struggle to pay rent. For me, I personally wouldn't invest in those areas. I'll give you an example of one. Las Vegas right now is somewhere that I personally would not invest. Now, I have family there. I've been able to go and look at that market because I've even considered purchasing property there. And I do think that they have not seen the total effect of COVID. I do think that it will affect property values. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm much more comfortable in my market than in a market like that. And you need to get to the point where you feel comfortable and confident that in your specific market, things are going in the right direction. Now, again, I do not have a crystal ball, and that's why I follow all of these criteria. And if these criteria are not met, then I will not purchase the property. Now, that does not protect me 100%. Nothing does. Anything could happen. If an earthquake hit Idaho right now and destroyed everything and left a gaping hole and everyone left Idaho, I'd be toast. Now, the odds of that happening, not good, but it would take something that drastic, in my opinion, for me to be in jeopardy with my real estate where I'm at, and you need to invest in a market where you feel the same. I hope that gives you a good idea of what criteria to look at, and there is even more than this that I'm not gonna cover in this video. If you want to know everything I do when it comes to finding properties, going through my whole due diligence process, all of that stuff before I purchase a property, you can click the link below and get $50 off my real estate investing course. Now, what I think is unique about this course, that puts it at only $250. It's over 7 hours of content that I truly believe will help you to start investing and continue investing and build up to over 100 doors of rental real estate. So if you want to know more and you're serious about purchasing real estate, get that, and it's going to help you decide if your market is the perfect place to invest. Or if you don't want to purchase the course, that is totally awesome. I'm going to continue to give you everything I can over the YouTube channel. However, in one of these videos, it's so hard to cover everything that you need and tie it all together. So again, the course is below. Go check it out and make sure you use the code to get $50 off. I know a lot of people have asked, Chandler, you haven't invested in anything for the last like 8 months, and maybe it's even been longer than that. Why have you not invested, and what are you investing in now, and how is it going? Right now, I have a 15-plex under contract. We did the entire inspection last week, and I actually was pretty happy with it. We've got a couple things that could still break the deal, and I'm not gonna talk about those until we get the deal wrapped up. However, I am very confident purchasing this because it met all of my criteria. And as long as it meets my criteria, I'm in a place where I'm going to buy real estate. So as of right now, I've done the inspection. We've got the numbers pretty close to where they need to be. We've got to get a couple things cleaned up that we found within the inspection. That's as much of an update as I'm going to give you, but I hope that gives you confidence to go out and find a market similar to mine where you're confident and comfortable. And if you find that market and a deal that meets your criteria, then it's time to jump. Have the confidence to know that if it meets your criteria, immediately you're going to put in an offer and get it under contract and start moving things forward. Because you need that confidence to lock up a deal, because here's the reality. In a lot of markets, things are a little hairy right now, but in a lot of markets, things are actually doing extremely well when it comes to real estate. Now, it might not stay that way, and that's why you need to investigate your market. However, if you find a property that meets your criteria in a good market, I do believe that right now is as good as any time for you to purchase real estate. Now, if you enjoyed the video, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell so you can catch all of my future videos where my goal is to help you to build a huge passive income. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.